This episode was recorded March 30th, 2020, which was about 2 weeks into the quarantine in New Hampshire. All right, so I'd like to welcome everybody back to the Raef Granger podcast. I'm here with my good friend and colleague, Reid Butler, today. Hello, Reid.
Hey, what's going on, Raef?
You know, just home sequestered. That's the term I've
Yeah,
been using.
similar.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So this episode segment's going to be Gen X and the Millennial. Raef's the Gen X, Reid's the Millennial, and we're just going to talk about our take on COVID-19 and the social distancing that we're experiencing. And we just thought we'd put a little of our thoughts to the airwaves and keep people sane out there. So,
try.
do you want to start? Do you have
I do actually. I
thoughts?
do have a question.
Go.
Are your kids both home? Is everybody home?
Yeah. So yeah, great question. So my scenario is, I do have 4 children. My 2 older girls are sequestered at home with their mom.
Hmm.
And my 2, I guess, middle children. I have my son who's 19. Really feel for him. That's the famous Lou. Okay.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
get this, Reid. Kid's 19, second semester college. He's getting
Sucks.
ready to play lacrosse, his first lacrosse season. He's already played. He's had 3-4 games, right? Man, I feel for him because now he home with mommy and daddy. He's not allowed to go anywhere. He's just totally stuck at home with me, his grumpy dad, not letting him go out be with his buds. He gets it, like he understands it's real, but he is in the camp of like I'm not gonna get it, and I'm not gonna pass it to anybody. He doesn't.
Yeah,
He's a very kind-hearted soul. He would not want anybody to get it, but he's 19. He's of the
yeah,
mindset like I don't have it, my friends don't have it. What's the problem?
yeah.
But
I
he's
get
home.
that.
He's been sequestered for 14 days. My youngest, Emmy, she's 13, and she's like a mini, like I aspire to be who she is already. Like she's like homeschooling, no problem. The girl's up at 8:30.
Really?
Oh yeah, she's ready to go. She takes her classes. She does her homework. Uh, she's like 100% self-sufficient.
Damn.
So, so that's my. Oh, and then I've got Marisa, my wife, and she's in a really interesting scenario because she does work in healthcare, but she's an occupational therapist. So
Right.
her job is getting you up and functional after some routine surgery, shoulder surgery, heart surgery, hernia surgery.
Yeah.
She's not emergent care. I mean, she does have medical training, but she's not a nurse. Um, and so what's been interesting is she's actually been called off of work,
Hmm.
strangely, although when you think about it, it makes sense because all day surgeries are canceled. All optional
Right.
surgeries are canceled.
Yeah.
Now, she is on the list for critical care workers that may have to happen if there's a spike to help in some capacity.
Right.
But it won't be treating a COVID patient. She doesn't have the skill sets for that.
I would
Or
assume too, like her day-to-day patients, for the most part, are probably of the high-risk category, right?
no, that's what I'm saying. Like her normal day
Oh,
to day.
right, but if there were like her age range of general patients that she sees from an occupational
Oh, right,
therapy standpoint is mostly that older crew, right?
correct,
For the most
correct.
part.
Which they're saying
Yeah,
stay home to be safe.
yeah, yeah.
Um, and then on top of that, our yoga studio that she co-owns is shut down.
Right.
They did make the decision about 4 or 5 days before the governor said to, and
Yeah.
it was a very tough decision to make because Marisa did have healthcare workers that practice yoga saying, "Thank God you're open. I need some
Right.
respite."
Right.
So there were 50% of the people that were like, "Thank God you're closed," and
Hmm.
50% of the people like, "Oh, we understand, but oh."
Have they
Um,
tried to do any sort of online model or not really?
they are online. Yep. And
Nice.
there's been
Okay.
an
Good.
interesting scenario with that. There have been completely new members who have joined saying things like, "I was too intimidated to come to a studio."
Oh, that's actually a good point.
It's
Yeah.
an interesting point. Um, but our type of yoga is a hot yoga practiced in a room, and so it's good. There's online, there's yoga, but there's the people who want hot. It's like going to a spin class. It's like it's a thing
Yeah.
to go to the
Yeah.
studio. So,
But yeah, I mean, at least the people who were going can try to maintain, and the newcomers can give it a shot without. So
yeah,
that's an interesting point, because I mean, I stand in the camp. I'm not too intimidated to go to a yoga studio, but I'm not jumping out of the door trying to jump into every yoga studio I possibly can.
right.
So I think from an introduction standpoint, in fact, the only yoga classes I've ever done are online.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
So I suppose, not for sales purposes, but for interest purposes, if you are interested, it's Soulfire Power Yoga, and just go to their website. And I'm not sure how you log in, and I'm not sure how. I don't
Yeah.
even know what it costs, but
Yeah.
it's there, and it's a totally reduced price. Just to give you a ballpark, I think a monthly unlimited membership is $109. I think.
Yeah.
So it's not $109 for monthly
Sure.
online.
Sure.
Classes are full. There's 26 to 30 people.
Nice.
It's done by Zoom. So you'll see people's pictures up, or they can camera off, and
Yep.
so it's. I've done it a few times. It's actually been better than I thought. Experience.
Interesting. What's a normal class size she can do in the studio?
I think 44.
Okay. All right. So that's pretty big.
44. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's on my wife's side. Now on my side of the coin, I've had some interesting phenomenon. So had just booked an 85-person corporate speaking engagement. It was for a contracting corporation's annual party, annual summit, and I was going to do a disc communication workshop. We're pretty much inking the deal, and then the social distancing hit, which obviously makes total sense for the welfare and health of our company.
Yeah.
I mean, of our country.
Yeah.
Will I get it back? Who knows, right? I mean, I'm hoping to. I mean,
Yeah.
maybe they'll have it in September. Maybe I'll still be top of mind. I don't know.
Yeah.
And also though, but I've not hit a total devastation, because a lot of my coaching, a lot of my speaking can be done via Zoom. So
Yep.
I did conduct my masterclass number 2 was conducted via Zoom, and that went better than I thought. I am hosting for all my masterclass and coaching people. We have coffee hour and tea hour.
Nice. Nice.
So that's tomorrow, and that's been helpful. Just
Yeah.
log in, let people see some faces, and keep that community going.
Mm-hmm.
I have some law clients that are not affected. One is a retail. Well, they're probably affected now. I have to be careful. I don't want to breach confidences, but they're shut down now. But before that, they had a huge spike of business. So it's a mix. And then I've had some coaching people that are like, whoa, like suspend everything. So what I've done personally is they can suspend their payment, but they're still in. I'm not dropping them from.
Oh, cool.
I'm
Good.
like, listen. And they weren't asking to be. They're like, I get it if I need to drop out. I'm like, no, nobody's dropping out.
We'll figure it. We'll figure it out.
Figure it out.
Yeah. Good.
That's so we're how many days in are we? I feel like we're in day 12 or something, or because
I don't know.
Our family started, I would say, about 4 or 5 days before it became really clear, like everybody should do it. I think because my sister worked healthcare, so she was kind of like, "Hey, we got to do this." But we're getting a little squirrely, I would say.
Yeah.
Oh, I want to say, I want to remind me one more thing, but it's for later. But I want to hear. Tell me about you. Is your wife teaching online?
Yeah, kind of. So we are actually holed up in North Conway. So we kind of made a decision. So for my parents are south for the winter, so they have their condo up in North Conway that's vacant. Myself and my brothers use it for a ski condo, basically. So we decided, you know what, let's get out of Portsmouth. Let's come up here. She was already, so at that time, she was already guaranteed to be off school through this week. I think they're supposed to go back next week. Yeah, April 7th or something like that. So we were like, all right, well, let's go up north. And then funny, my younger brother, who works for PwC in the seaport, Boston.
What's PwC?
PricewaterhouseCooper.
Oh.
He had already kind of been up here, and then the mandate came down, and we were all like, not stuck up here, but for lack of a better word, he was like, well, I'm not going to go back to the city. And we were not going to go back down south. So we basically are all here, and the 2 dogs. And then, so the weird thing is, and it's not weird, but one of the more challenging things of this whole COVID thing. And I wrote a post on LinkedIn about the other day.
Oh, I've been trying to follow that. I didn't see it.
Oh, well, it's up there. It's just that my wife's due on May 16th with our first child.
Oh, but Jesus.
So, which is, I mean, we're kind of just rolling with it, control. I keep telling her, control what we can control. But it's weird, right? I mean, I'm no, like, we had a doctor's appointment the other day. I wasn't allowed to go. As of right now, I would be allowed to get into the hospital for the delivery, but we've also been prepped that could very well change. And I wouldn't be allowed, which is insane, which is ridiculous. I mean, I totally get it, but just an insane thought. Who would have thought that I would have been like, nope, they would have told me, no, you can't come into the hospital. So, we're kind of rolling with it as it goes, but we're I think this week's 33 weeks, so we are kind of in go mode.
You could be going in any minute.
Yeah.
Do you have a whole separate wing that you go to that no COVID person has walked into, or?
Technically, yeah. I mean, I think when she went to the hospital, she was like, I walked in, I gave him my name, and like immediately a thermometer was in my ear, and mask on and things like that. So I mean, it's I think they're doing everything they can, and there's a sort of the birthing unit is off to the side, but you never know, especially with visitors right now, who's coming and going and things like that. But they're trying to control it as much as possible. But it's weird because her parents fully expected to come and visit. We canceled the shower. And I don't have the biggest issue. It is what it like. Keeping people healthy is way more important than opening presents in front of people. Like, we can figure out, we can do something down the road once the baby's born and everyone is back in the general population. But
are you worried about transmission to the baby?
Yes, I am. My wife, never thought I'd say this, but she's not allowed outside the house, which is, it's, I am worried. I think what's from the studies that we had seen coming out of China, I think there were 9 or so. The original stat was there was 9 or so pregnant women that had contracted the virus, and both mom and baby ended up being healthy. But that being said, that's an extremely small sample size. So I mean, I think technically she would be considered high risk, but I mean, I'm worried, but not to the point where.
If they let you in, are you thinking you might not go in case you're somehow an asymptomatic carrier or something?
No, as of right now, I would go in.
Okay.
I think my wife would kill me if I had the choice to go in and I didn't.
Oh, okay. See, that's an interesting topic to me.
How so?
I kind of think of what it was like in the 50s for dads. They didn't go in. And what if you were a soldier? You're not there. But that's interesting to me. Like, that's a Raef and Reid topic that we like to talk about, that kind of shift in perspective of my wife would kill me. It's funny how
it was never a question.
Have changed.
Well, I mean that it is true she would kill me, but I also, there was never a moment where I was like, well, maybe I will, maybe I won't. Like, just the assumption.
I grew up at a time where my mom describes they rolled the tray table after I was born with her ashtray and cigarettes on it.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, that was 1969. That's how babies were born.
That's funny.
I don't know if my dad was in the room. I have to ask her if he was in the. I don't think he was. No, of course I don't
Yeah.
remember that as a baby, but that's that's what things were like. And then now you're there catching the baby.
Well, yeah, I'm there catching the baby, and then everybody comes and visits 6 hours later.
I imagine that won't be happening, or will it be?
I don't think that will happen.
Yeah.
Well, that's the other complication too. If we're still in this situation in a month and a half, her dad or some of our family members are still going to work. So if they're still going to work and they haven't been sort of quarantining themselves before they see the baby, I don't know that we'll let them see the baby for a period of time.
I wouldn't. It's not, to me, it wouldn't be worth it.
Right, but coming back to what you're saying is that there's a disconnect from people our parents' age in sort of how to handle it and how serious and how I actually did want to talk about this subject separate of this, but how we are reacting to it versus how they're reacting to it.
Yes, that's an interesting phenomenon, isn't it?
And yeah, and I don't know, this is kind of a sidebar, but I don't know what you've sort of experienced with your interactions with folks, but I feel like the folks who are the older generations are way more lax about this than younger generations.
Yes, I was talking to a good buddy of mine. You know him, actually. I don't want to name him, but you know who he is.
Fine.
And his parents were he was like telling them like 4 days ago, I don't know, Mom, Dad, you can't be going out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's crazy. It's
crazy.
And maybe it's because I was thinking about this today. Maybe it's because everything that they know, they're not used to having access to everything at their fingertips for the computer, right? They've always gone to the post office, gone to the weekly girl. Like they're in such a routine at this point. Like I get my haircut once a month. I get my, I don't know how to say it correctly, but it feels like they're just sort of lost without being like, well, this is what I do every week. So
I wonder if it's perspective for them. So my parents are boomers. So they were growing up after World War II. So boomers means you were born when the soldiers came back. So that's 1945, 1950, 1955, 1960. So they went through Vietnam.
Yeah, same with my parents.
Yeah, they went through Vietnam. They went through the civil rights. They went through all those, the protests there. What else did they go through? They went through Kennedy, I think, was 67. Not sure Kennedy.
Mm-hmm.
Went through the Kennedy assassination, oil embargoes. So I'm wondering, and they were the parents of the parents that went through the Great Depression. I mean, they were the children of the parents that went through the Great Depression. So they heard those stories. So I wonder if they're sort of like, it's another world crisis. I don't think they'd want people
to
die.
I've gotten through so many of them that it's it's just this is so strange.
This is new for me. I've never gone through anything of this seriousness. I mean, I can remember the gas station lines in the 70s. I was a little boy, but it didn't mean it. I wasn't sequestered in my house.
Well, I don't know. I mean, how even throughout this isn't a history lesson, but 50s, 60s, 70s, how many have people ever been fully sequestered to their house like this and told that they can't go anywhere?
No, but I mean, their parents would have been, depression. They would have been serious famine. There would have been serious out of work. There would have been serious businesses people who lost businesses.
Right.
They would have heard those stories at the dinner table.
Right.
So, yeah, I talked to my parents who were usually pretty sort of careful with things. And, they were being careful, but they weren't overly concerned.
No, I mean, we were all quarantined up here, and I FaceTimed my parents, and they were partying in a crowd of like 300 people. And I'm like, what in the hell is happening?
See, I'm so glad we're having this conversation, because I kind of thought the millennials were sort of like, what are you all worried about, people?
No, has not been my experience at all.
Okay. What's your perspective as a millennial?
Now we've got to separate.
We have already predetermined. You represent every millennial that ever is.
Yeah.
That goes without saying.
Yeah. We've got to separate me from the college kids, first of all.
Well, college kids are Gen
I
Z.
know, but right. So my experience with all of my colleagues, my friends have quarantined themselves almost 100%. Now I am in a decent window where, 3 or 4 of my friends are also pregnant or have newborns or have little kids or whatever it might be, right? So we've got more of a, but any of that group, I mean, we all order our groceries online, have them delivered, uh, and don't leave the house, haven't left the house besides go for a run or go take a walk.
Mm-hmm.
But from what I've seen, all of us have taken it very seriously, from my group at least.
I mean, I think we're sitting now in the midst of it. I think people are understanding the gravitas of it. But how
Yeah,
about
it's
in the
more of the
beginning?
early in the beginning. So maybe that's a better point. I think millennials jumped on it faster than others, I think.
On the social distancing and stuff. Yeah.
Right. And I don't know if do you find like there's some sort of, with your generation, there's like an ounce of stubbornness?
Well, my generation isn't the one not also we're also social distancing, and we did early on. I think
You do, yeah.
it's our parents that seem to not be. It's our parents and
Right, right,
the
right, right.
Gen Z that was still
Right.
doing Florida spring break.
Right. But all of your friends, are they all taking it very seriously?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mixed on. It was mixed on whose kids like we forced our kids to social distance pretty early on, and then there was a lot of I would say mixed parents who weren't having their kids do it, but
Yep.
that's changed.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
they're now all homebound now.
Gotcha.
I would say 50-50 there. Um, I would say where I think we feel a little worried because we're in our 50s. So we're of that bracket. They say 60 and above, but that's just an arbitrary line. I mean,
Yeah.
When my heart skips a beat when I read, a New York person in, age 56 died of COVID, perfectly
Right.
healthy. I'm like, ah.
Right.
Oh,
Yeah, I think there's, right, to me, I don't know, yeah, sure, if you're 16 above, you're in that more concerned zone, but 60 and under, it doesn't really just seem to discriminate, right?
no,
Like,
that's a great point.
I
No,
don't,
it does not.
I mean, there are 20-year-olds and 30-year-olds dying of this, so
Yes.
it's, you're playing roulette at that point.
Yeah, and my parents are 75-ish, and they're
Right.
pretty much like, we're home. It's not much of a change for us. I've got 3 months of food in the freezer anyway.
Right. They weren't sneaking out to a brewery every.
No.
Yeah.
They also live in a rural part of the country. So
So
I
that
think
helps. Yeah.
last I talked to my mom, which was about 3 days ago, nobody in her county has tested positive for
Oh, nice.
COVID.
Yeah,
So
nice.
that's got to be some sure. Did you hear how we're in Rockingham County in the state of New Hampshire? We're the highest. We're considered a hotbed.
Are we?
So I think you did a very wise move moving. No, seriously, to move up there.
Yeah.
That's great that you did that.
I'll tell you, it's going to get complicated though, because we are going through Exeter Hospital down there.
I was going to ask you that if you're going to go there or going to go to North Conway.
Well, I mean,
there's the hospital up there.
Yeah, there's a hospital, 4 minutes from our house, but we've planned all along to have the baby in Exeter. I think if you asked us today, our plan would be to go home week 37 and figure it out from home and then go to Exeter. But
North Conway should be able to deliver a baby, right?
they delivered me. Look at me.
I'm
okay.
saying, I don't know. I'd consider staying. I mean, why come to the hotbed?
Yeah. No, I mean, I'm with you there. And yeah, so we have a little bit of stuff to figure out, but at the grand scheme of things, our problems are not nearly what others are.
Yeah, but that's not what this podcast is about either. It's, just what we're dealing with and what we, share some thoughts.
Yeah, but I think from my perspective, to sort of stay grounded, focused, and not worry, it's we can roll with it.
I'm going to ask you this because I actually had thought of this, and then I read an article and I was like, oh, maybe I was dumb for thinking this. So, hang on one second. I have to talk to said 19-year-old. Okay, so I think he's playing Fortnite. He's like yelling. So I lost my train of thought. It wasn't on where this is going. Well, one thing that I wanted to get your take on. This isn't what I was thinking of, but what I want to get a take on is: have you noticed that all the articles are on how many cases, who's dying? It's all about death and dying in cases. Where are the articles? And maybe it's just my news feed. Where are the articles on how we're going to beat this? How's it going to end? What it's going to look like? I mean, I had to dig, and I found an article out of Washington, the state of Washington, which I wanted to go through with you. But I'm wondering what you've heard on how this is going to be beaten.
Yeah, I mean, I'm seeing much of the same as you are. One personal side to this that I have one of my clients was one who tested positive as a result of the Biogen conference in Boston.
Oh, right.
So she wouldn't mind me saying this. She was on the front page of the Boston Globe the other day, sort of explaining her experience. She's mid-30s, otherwise healthy, and she got kind of knocked flat by it. She says in the piece that she, couldn't lift her head off of her pillow for like a day or two. So
wow.
Yeah, so
chest constrictions and breathing
just
problems.
literally just too weak to be able to from a respiratory. So she sort of messages it doesn't matter who you are, stay home. Which at the time because she was one of the earlier cases, right? The Biogen thing happened weeks ago now. At the time was what some people really needed to hear a week and a half ago, whenever that article came out. How we're going to get through this, I'm not sure. You've seen a lot of articles of that. I mean, you kind of, people have been talking actually lately. I feel like I'm seeing a lot of, simulations and stuff where people are saying, we're going to lose 100, 200,000, a million, 2 million. And I think there's almost an effort to create some sort of fear to make people realize, like, this isn't we're going to lose 10,000 people and we're just going to be done with it, and all of a sudden, the skies are going to clear and we're all good.
Well, I do think that, especially when it's a 21-year-old with no prior health issues that dies of COVID.
Yeah,
I read that as, hey, Gen Z, stop freaking partying in Fort Lauderdale, which I know was weeks ago, but that's how I read that. Well, the research I had done, which is about a week old now, was from some scientists, and it was, I think, out of the Washington Sentinel or something. So these were scientists talking about it, doctors of different types. This is what they said, Reid. I found it enheartening. They said, listen, the social distancing is not to eradicate the disease. It's not going to happen because there's still going to be people that connect with other people, and then there's a community spread. What it's designed to do is flatten the bell curve, which we've heard so much about, to release the burden on the healthcare system, to spread this disease out. They say we're all going to be, not all, but those of us that are going to get sick from it are going to get sick from it from the beginning till about August, September. But if we keep the social distancing, we'll spread the burden out on the healthcare system to handle that. And again, they were saying the same thing. Symptoms could be mild to moderate.
So are they saying that almost same amount of people are going to be infected? It's just reducing the stress on the healthcare system to let them be able to handle it correctly.
Yeah, the point of the social distancing is not to stop contact, which will then stop the virus from transmission. They're like that. Yep. That's not how we're going to eradicate it. The way we're going to eradicate it is by building up the herd immunity. And they defined the herd immunity as, I've built up my immunity. I walk through your droplets on the sidewalk. I now don't get the contagion. And then I've got my herd immunity. They said,
yeah,
the best way to get the herd immunity is going to be through the vaccine. because then we don't suffer the illness to get the herd
Well,
immunity.
because there was an argument early on to let's just almost, for lack of a better term, rip the Band-Aid, let a ton of people get infected, then herd immunity happens faster. The problem with that theory is that it's not. It doesn't seem to be a smart idea.
The problem with that theory is that we don't have enough ventilators. So the issue is not that it's incurable. The issue is if you get it and can't breathe through ventilator, you'll then be breathing and you'll pass through the virus.
Right.
So if we run out of ventilators, that's when people are going to be dying.
Gotcha.
So they were saying, that's what the socialists. So we're going to be sick with COVID through till about August, September is what they said as a populace.
Yeah, that doesn't surprise me.
But they didn't say we'd be sequestered then, but they just said that's okay. So they then said, hopefully by then the vaccine will come out, we'll get vaccinated, we'll build the herd immunity. And also will be people getting sick and not, or asymptomatic will also build the herd immunity. But they're like, but we don't want a whole bunch of us to get sick to build the herd immunity because then we're all sick.
Right.
They said that's the way this is going to be beat. So they're like, social distancing is critical.
How do you, so I don't know, I don't know enough about this, but how do you then look to China, who's already started to open up a bit? That seems to be numbers seem to be going down a bit.
So
I don't know how that works.
Because the herd immunity got built.
It's starting to build up in those towns, yeah.
Right. And so they said South Korea, did it right by quickly shutting down, quick mobile testing. And the reason why the mobile testing is important is it gives the data as to where the hotbeds are and where they can make adjustments.
Because it's the same argument for just vaccinations in general, right? Mm-hmm. Like if you don't get your kid vaccinated, it's not that's necessarily a problem. It's that there are people who cannot get vaccinated that would be jeopardized, right?
I'm in the camp. Maybe this is again generational. It's a problem. We need to get our. This is judgmental. My opinion.
I'll take a political stance on this particular one. It's a problem. Yeah.
Yeah. That we need to get them vaccinated from smallpox and measles and all that stuff because it spreads exponentially. So,
right. But then also you have kids who have immune problems who cannot get vaccinated. So if you by chance don't, right? I'm not going to get into that. Okay. Yeah. Anyways, moving on.
So it's going to be beaten by the herd immunity being built up, basically.
But there's no way to effectively do that. You can't just figure that out. You can't have it be done in 3 weeks and be done with it.
No.
Right. Because I think originally the thought was people had thoughts that, okay, so in theory, you're no longer contagious after 14 days. So if we just social distance for 14 days, we'll be good.
Right. No, they were saying
that's not going to work.
That's not going to eradicate. What that does is flatten the curve. It doesn't eradicate the illness.
Right.
The virus.
Right.
That's going to happen through our own immunities or through the vaccine that comes out.
Got you.
So then, on top of that, I heard a great podcast, which I all recommend you listen to, Armchair Expert with Dax Shepard, and he had Sanjay Gupta on.
Mm-hmm. The CNN guy. Yeah.
Yes, he's pretty known as a I think he's your age probably, or maybe I don't know how old he is.
But he's older than me.
He strikes me as a younger doctor. He's not 66.
He was I just saw an article. One of his good neuroscience friends just died from the coronavirus.
I wonder who it was.
He was an older guy. He was 65, but he was this. I mean, in the field of neuroscience, apparently, he was one of those doctors who would separate conjoined twins and all these. He was big deal.
Terrible.
And he just passed away.
So Sanjay gave a lot of great factual advice. Just listen to Dax Shepard's podcast on the Armchair Expert. And one of the things I picked up from there was the fact that he's we have the ability to treat anybody with COVID to successfully have them survive. The issue's not that we don't have the right medicines to handle it or ventilators. It's the fact that we don't have enough equipment. He says that's what the challenge is.
Right.
The right mask, the right protective gear, and the right actual treatment. And so then what he said was, apparently what happens is the virus attacks our lungs in such a way that it creates or it attacks this enzyme. I could be totally using all the wrong medical terms. It could be protein, not an enzyme. I don't know. But we have something in our lungs that keeps our lungs wet, moist, and ability to breathe in and out.
Okay.
The virus attacks that and makes the lungs stiff is the issue,
Okay.
which is treatable either with the ventilator or with certain medicines, he said, to keep the lungs elastic. But we don't have enough supplies.
Is it both a matter of supplies and, well, as a combination of that, just not getting to people soon enough?
He said that he thought that the president did a good job when he did sequester that plane in China.
Gotcha.
He said that was a good move. That definitely saved lives. He's like, but the country could have done better with sort of like going, that's a problem in like making ventilators now, you know, like which we're doing now. But he's like, that perhaps response could have been better. The right kind of gear. And then what's really interesting is Bill Gates wrote an article on COVID, not COVID-19, but a different COVID back in 2015. He's one of the kind of thought, people who had said, hey, a pandemic is going to be a real crisis for the world, especially third world. And he's already donated back in 2015 hundreds of millions of dollars to help protect against a pandemic such as this. So it's interesting that he's being looked to now as sort of a leader in the thought of this. And he's not a doctor.
No, but he has the resources, and he does. I mean, between all the medical work they do and malaria and all that stuff, I think.
Yeah.
He's
so his article, you can catch that on if you just Google Bill Gates COVID.
Most people take his call if he calls.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I found it encouraging to know, like, all right, we just need to minimize the strain on the healthcare system so that people can have ventilators. Because apparently that's what happens is, like, if Reid gets it, they pop a ventilator in you and you'll ride it out most 9 times out of 10.
Right.
If you even get to that level of critical care.
How are you finding, and you were actually probably better set up than most, but how are you finding sort of the full transition to Zoom to online meetings? How's that working?
It's fine for me. It's pretty seamless. It's pretty seamless. I'm more worried about consumer confidence. I'm really hoping, what I hope happens is, so Larry Venata, the owner of Portsmouth Team Building, who refers me a lot of my corporate gigs, he had lots of revenue that got canceled, within days.
I bet, yeah.
And what I'm hoping is, what I told him is, hey, maybe when we're done with this, corporations are going to want corporate team building even more.
Just all day, right.
And he's like, well, I hope that too, but what if it's a recession? So that's what I'm concerned about, because my industry, coaching, even law to some degree, kind of sometimes considered an optional thing. So if the consumer confidence starts to shrink, that's going to affect me.
Yeah.
How about you? What about your day job?
I mean, it can go both ways, right? For those of you who don't know, my day job is financial advising. It's gone both ways, to be honest with you. There are certainly people who are putting stuff on hold. There are clients who are, concerned and calling and, losing jobs, being furloughed, things like that. But on the other side of it, I've got clients who are, hey, should I jump in right now?
I want to ask you that.
Yeah, go ahead.
And please let the audience know any disclaimers that need to happen about you giving.
Sure.
No, seriously, about financial advice over the airwaves here. But
yep.
I remember being taught, 20 years ago from, I don't know, CNBC or something, when the stock market arbitrarily dives, it's a sale, buy.
Yep.
So here's Raef. Do I have an extra $10,000 laying around? No.
Yeah.
Do I have funds that I would consider emergency funds?
Mm-hmm.
Right? I've got some money set aside that's for emergencies. I'm like, should I be taking that and trying to double my money in the market? Should I be buying mutual funds? Should I be increasing my portfolio? What's the advice there from somebody who doesn't have it laying around?
Yeah, I mean, I think so. Step one, you're correct. I hesitate talking too much about this from a compliance standpoint. Sorry, my dog is putting a tennis ball at my feet.
I love the new
Um,
way of Zoom, which is dogs, kids,
yeah, yeah,
teenagers without shirts. It's
yeah. I
just
think
how
he's
it is.
bored. Um, so the short answer, and there's going to be a lot of caveats to this, is if, from my opinion, if you might need the money in a short-term situation, an emergency savings type of situation, you leave it in your emergency savings bucket, right? Because we have no idea if this is going to run 3 months, 6 months, 12 months, 2 years, 3 years, whatever it might be, right? We don't know. So now buying low is a great idea, great concept. But again, you've got to know that whatever money you're putting in, you can't necessarily get back in the short run, right? So if you've got money lying around, yeah, this generally is not the worst idea to start thinking about putting some money in the market. But
does somebody see first of all, is that the same for mutual funds or is that only with stocks?
all the above.
Okay. And then,
all the above. Yes.
And
yeah.
I'm
There's
sure
still
there's
risk
some
with all of
instances
it.
where people double their money, but when it's
Mhm.
when it's an arbitrary sale like it is now.
Yeah.
Well, first of all, is it an arbitrary sale? Because to me, an arbitrary sale is when COVID's going on, and so people freak out, and so the stocks dip. Versus, Old Navy's going out of business. That's not arbitrary. That might be that
Yeah.
they're not running their business properly. I don't know if Old Navy is. Sorry, Old Navy. If you're let's pick Burger King. Okay,
Yeah.
Burger King said they're going to file for bankruptcy or something. So that to me that's a different kind of sale. That's based on actual business. So my question is, mutual funds, which you just answered, but do people double their money? Or is it really like, no, at the end of the day, it's usually like a 15% increase versus if you had not done anything?
It depends on how sharp the curve back or upwards is and where you got in out of the gate. But if you think about, like, the problem with this scenario is that a lot of the dip in the stock market is not, it's less about a lot of these major companies being viable in the long run. It's that people just have liquidity needs, right? They have cash needs, right? These major corporations, oh shoot, we got to make payroll next week. We got to make payroll next 2 months. We need cash. So they have to sell something to get cash, right? Or they're trying to sell to, sort of stop the bleeding. Right. So there's an argument. There was a webinar the other day with the guy who, the CEO of BlackRock, who's the largest money manager in the world. And he was like, a lot of times in these scenarios, the good stocks, the better assets, the well-known brands are on a deeper discount than others because that's the only thing that people can sell right now, right? No one's going to go, even if I had Norwegian Cruise Line to sell, right after the cruises every cruise got canceled in the world, no one's going to be on the other side of that trying to buy it. Or few people would be, right?
Okay.
Now, if I have a severe liquidity problem, right, I have to fire sale something. Oh shoot, let me go fire one of the big techs. Let me go sell one of the big tech stocks because there will be a buyer on the other end of that.
I see.
Right. So in theory, there's a chance that you might run into that scenario.
I see. Okay.
But I mean, yeah, by and large, I mean, I think obviously it's all individually based, but there is a real argument to jump into it, to put some money in the market. Now, if someone came to me and was like, well, is this the low, or is the low going to be, 10 days from now or 15 days from now, or it's the low already happened?
You don't know.
No, and that's a poor game to play.
So I read one stock book, I think it was called Beating the Street by Peter Lynch. And he talked about the way to buy stocks. There's two ways.
Yep.
Correct me if I'm wrong. One is to do all your homework. You got to read the prospectuses, you got to read what they do, you got to read the quarterlies, you got to read their financials. You got to see if the company's viable, not viable, like if you're just going to buy a straight stock.
Yep.
The other way is to buy a stock in a company that you believe. Dunkin' Donuts. I think Dunkin' Donuts might be private, but companies where you're like, Like for me, it might be Marvel. So I
Hmm.
remember being a big Marvel comic fan. This is before they
Yep.
bought for Disney. They were like $18 a share back 20 years ago. I was like, I want to buy it. And I never bought it. I'm kicking myself because I liked comics. I thought there would be something there one day. So I went ahead and I looked at Marvel, Disney Studios. That stock hasn't dropped at all.
Yeah.
If anything,
No.
probably people streaming more.
Thanks to Disney Plus. Yeah.
So then I looked at Lululemon. Still $198 a share. I think it
Hmm.
raised, yesterday. It was up $2 a share. So
Yeah.
I don't know how much of a sale there really is, or if there's a sale, I don't know where it is.
Yeah. I mean, and that's I don't know when that book came out, but it could have been
That was over
before.
20 years ago.
So it could have been before, the mutual fund and the ETF craze, or the
mutual funds were out.
convenience of, building a portfolio around more of a mutual fund than a stock,
Oh yeah,
than an individual stock, right?
I think his advice was absolutely that. He's like, unless
Yeah.
you know what you're doing, buy a mutual fund.
Right.
Or you just love the product so much that you have faith in the product.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of the times it does come back to sort of this, like, investing shouldn't be an emotional thing, but if you're someone who is going to take a wild stab at something, might as well be something you're passionate about.
So I have one little sidebar story on that. I was watching American Idol 100 years ago, and there were these ads for Ford cars that were targeting probably your generation, I think.
Okay.
They're very hip, current, really cool ads for like Ford Focuses, and not the Ford 150s, but like, and I was like, Ford's doing it right. So I did. I bought some Ford stock, and I doubled my money.
Nice.
Yeah. So I felt very proud of myself.
Nice.
Like, I beat the street.
You know how to do it.
Yeah, I made all of about $800 because I think I could only afford 12 Ford stocks. It's not. I didn't have the courage to invest $100,000. I think I invested about $1,000. But
I mean, I think if anything, this time is one of those things where it gives people more of a pause or thought that, I tell all my clients that you should have 6 to 9 months of sort of liquid savings ready to rock and roll in the event that, I usually describe it, your furnace goes, you don't have to drop back down into credit card debt or something like that. But I think this is giving you a pause to say, okay, that wasn't just a mere suggestion. Maybe I need to do this. Maybe I need to start thinking about this. Maybe I need to think about how to save and protect before I try to pick stocks.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a huge fan of Dave Ramsey, as you know. I mean, to me, he's the money guru.
Yeah.
So if anybody listening to my voice, if you want to know about that, read Total Money Makeover. Go buy Financial Peace University. I think it's $99. Might even be on sale during this crisis. But I have to say, like, as a former bankruptcy attorney, me included, I essentially live paycheck to paycheck. But I'm very conscious of the fact that my emergency fund, no, that's not true. I now, after reading Dave's book, I have an emergency fund. It's not 9 months, but I do have an emergency fund. And it feels good. It feels nice to know that I have a cushion. That I have to be conscious of the fact that, like, I'm glad the government's bailing us out with these checks that are supposed to be coming. I mean, that's unprecedented. Unemployment for self-employed, this is all good. And I'm not disparaging anybody who lives paycheck to paycheck because, brother, I've been there. But to your point, it's a wake-up call to be like, you know what? Maybe I should start getting an emergency fund in place because.
Right. Well, and then to your point, asking, is this a time where maybe you try and grab some of the market on the upside?
Dave's advice is always emergency fund first, then market.
Right. I mean, if you end up, let's say your emergency fund is $20,000 and you put 10 of that into the market.
See, that's what I'm wondering.
Yeah, but even then, I mean, then if you end up with, all of a sudden you end up with a $15,000 expense, you're either going to wipe out your emergency savings or you're going to drop back down. You're going to drop into credit card debt between 16 and 20% just to get the upside of the market that if you're lucky, you might get that.
That's what I'm wondering.
Right. And at the time that the market starts to go back up, your investment could still be down 10%.
Right.
So you can't pull it out. And you
Right.
can, but then you're locking in your losses.
Right.
So as enticing as it is, I mean, you got to be conservative with,
Yeah, it's not a casino
let's,
win. Right.
one of the best ways to put it is let's not make, short-term decisions on long-term goals, right?
Yeah. You know who's good at that is Rich Dad Poor Dad has
Right.
his books. He always
Yep.
says you got to play the money game,
That's
right?
good. That's a good book. Yeah.
Yeah, it's not what you just illustrated it perfectly. It doesn't make sense to invest 10 grand to potentially earn 7% to have to dip into credit card debt when your furnace goes to pay 19% on damage.
Right. You're just treading water. You're going backwards. Yeah.
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 Dave teaches, what I like about Dave's teachings, if you don't know about it, not you, Reid, but the world, is, he says in the beginning, it's just 1 month. Just that's your goal. You're going to you just get a 1 month emergency fund. And that seems more doable, Then it's 3.
Right.
And then I think it's what you said, 9, 12 or whatever. But I don't remember when you're supposed to start invest, but it's basically, I think it's after 3 months.
Yep.
Emergency fund. So
yeah, it varies a little bit, but yeah, in general, that's the smart play.
yeah. What do you think about? Did you see the article on 400 people went to Tuckerman's Ravine?
I was almost one of them.
So I wanted to talk to you about that. So for everybody
Yeah.
who maybe didn't see it, Tuckerman's Ravine is a backcountry skiing where you can kind of hike up and ski. I've not done it. Maybe Reid can talk about it more. But
Sure.
the state park was kind of saying to people, "Hey, don't be doing that. That's 400 people. Probably had asymptomatic people congregating together. And on top of that, one of you gets hurt back there, you're putting strain on healthcare."
Yep.
And part of me is like, "Oh my God, you idiots!" And part of me is like, "Wait a minute. Like, where are we supposed to go? Like, what if I want to go for a walk in the woods?" So
Yeah.
I kind of get it. And you're up in North Conway. I mean, I did have the thought, like, should I grab my daughter and try to get an Airbnb, which is probably $50 a night, and go hike some trails? So, what are your thoughts on that?
I don't know. I have varying thoughts on that, partially because I'm part of that Tuckerman's backcountry skiing community. I've been backcountry skiing probably 6 times over the last 2.5 weeks. I'm lucky enough my parents live right at the base of Cranmore, so I'll hike up and ski down. And I was up there the other day, and there's probably 30, 40 people at the top. I kind of thought I'd have the mountain to myself, and then there's a bunch of people. And so now I'm, not dodging people, but people are saying hi from a distance, and some people are more aware of the social distancing cues than others. And it was kind of a weird scene, right? Because I left thinking I'm just going to go out in the woods, and then I show up to a 40-person gathering, in a sense, right?
I kind of have sympathy for that.
But on the other side to it, I mean, I think for the greater good, it's a bit selfish this is the prime time for Tuckerman's. This is, you've got about a month.
Meaning separate from COVID.
Yeah, separate from COVID. So you've got about a month to get, the conditions of decent snow, decent weather, all the above. So it's always a compacted, big sort of crowd up there. But I still think it's a little bit selfish.
I mean, I was sort of thinking like, yeah, a nice remote walk in the woods on some trail, but how do I know there won't be 20 people thinking the same thing?
Yeah.
I guess I'd have to think about how popular the trail is, maybe.
I don't really have a great take on that, but I think I'm going to stay away. I mean, whether that's the right choice or not, I don't know.
Yeah, I often go to the Northampton State Beach, and I sit in the car and I'll sip a coffee and journal. And they've shut down the beaches, and I wondered if that was awesome. How Reid's dog
this is Crash.
Crash just rose into the camera very majestically. I want to go sit at the beach in my car. It's shut down. Parking lot shut down. It's shut down. So, I don't know. I mean, can I drive up the road and go to one of the pull-offs? I'm not sure. I don't want to break the rules.
Well, I mean, like playgrounds and stuff are obviously closed, and Yeah, I mean, at some point, I mean, I have to get outside.
Right.
To think that the outside is closed is crazy.
Especially for us New Englanders.
Right. It's the only reason we live here.
One of the reasons, yeah, that's right.
Main reason.
I live here.
But,
I live here for the craggy New England women.
nice.
We'll end with this. Did I ever tell you my theory on New
No,
Hampshire?
this
New
side
England
of the kid.
You're gonna
No.
love it. Okay.
Yeah.
So I was traveling with a buddy of mine from the Dave Ramsey organization, actually, and we flew into Nashville, Tennessee, together. I never saw more beautiful people. They were dressed, men and women, dressed to the tens. They just look great. Then we flew from there into Boston, and it was like night and day. And I'm convinced it's because of the weather. So in Boston, everybody had their wool coats up over their necks, and cold and craggy lines, and men and women. And so I think it's the cold. I think the heat just lets people blossom, and the cold, we just hunker down and shrink into ourselves.
Don't say hi to anybody.
Don't say hi to anybody. Yeah.
It's funny. My wife's from the Midwest, and she was first time we visited there. She's like, "I'm excited for you to see." She's like, "People will just say hi to you on the street," and I'm like, "I don't want that. No." Let me. And it was sure enough. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a good point.
It's a good point. It's a different culture.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I think we've talked this out.
Cool.
Got anything? I don't have anything else to add to you.
I'm good.
All right. So
Thanks, sir.
let's do another one in, I don't know, maybe a week or two.
This beard will be a little bit bigger.
I'm growing my beard out too.
Yeah.
Figures the time.
Might as well, right?
Yep.
There's no better time than this, right?
You know what I want to do though, actually, is Reid, what was the book that we had discussed where I lost the episode? Do you remember The Habit?
Oh yeah, Atomic Habits.
Yeah, I do want to cover that again. Let's pencil that in.
Sure.
Okay.
That works for me.
See you later, buddy.
Thanks, Raef.
Stay healthy.
Yeah, you too. Bye.
Bye.